Welcome to Civics in a Year, the podcast that makes civic literacy fast, accessible, and surprisingly engaging. In just 10 minutes an episode, we'll tackle one of 250 essential questions about American democracy, how it works, why it matters, and what it means for you. Whether you're a student, a teacher, or just someone who wants to better understand your country and your rights, you're in the right place. Civics in a Year is powered by the Civic Literacy Curriculum from the Center for American Civics and is produced in partnership with the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership at Arizona State University.
Welcome back to Civics in a Year. We are in the historical dramas part of our podcast, and I love this. I love it because things like, the very popular show by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton, has brought all of these really, really cool things to light. But I have with me today Dr. Stephen Knott, who wrote a book about Hamilton, again, before the Hamilton play made it cool to love Hamilton. So, Dr. Knott, thank you so much for being with us today. And today we're talking about kind of the beef between Hamilton and Burr. And I have seen the play 3 times in person. I have listened to the musical millions of times, it feels like. And I feel like I have read every book, including yours. So let's start with the good stuff. Hamilton and Burr worked together, right? They were, I don't want to say besties, but they were not enemies at first. So can you tell me a little bit about the good parts of Hamilton and Burr's relationship?
Yeah, they knew each other quite well. They both fought in the Revolutionary War, and both Burr and Hamilton served as staff officers for General Washington. Hamilton was at Washington's side for close to 4 years. Burr, a much briefer stint, but he and Hamilton would have been in close contact with one another during that time frame. After the war ends, after the triumph at Yorktown and the Treaty of Paris, both men returned to New York City, which was their base, and they're prominent lawyers in New York City, and they even argued a number of legal cases with each other, and occasionally opposite sides of the courtroom. But nonetheless, it was always a fairly amicable relationship. Where the break seems to begin to occur is when Hamilton's father-in-law, Betsy Elizabeth Schuyler's father, runs for the United States Senate in New York State, and Burr defeats him. And so Burr defeating Hamilton's father-in-law might have been one of the first more serious breaks between the two. But what really puts it over the top, Liz, is in 1800, when Burr is supposed to be running as the vice presidential candidate with Thomas Jefferson, that election deadlocks, and it's thrown into the House of Representatives because no candidate wins in the Electoral College. And Hamilton argues vigorously with his Federalist allies to get them to support Thomas Jefferson over Aaron Burr. And Burr is well aware that Hamilton is lobbying on Jefferson's behalf. And so that, needless to say, does not go down well with Burr. And then the final break of sorts is 1804, 4 years later. Burr runs for governor of New York, and Hamilton pulls out all the stops to try to keep Burr from becoming governor of New York State. And it's in the midst of that campaign that word reaches Burr that Hamilton said something, and to this day, we're not sure entirely what it was that Hamilton supposedly said, but it was something of a very personal nature, questioning Burr's character, questioning his integrity, supposedly. It reaches Burr. Burr challenges Hamilton to either withdraw that comment or face him on the dueling grounds. And both men being gentlemen of a certain elite, those were your 2 options. And if you don't apologize publicly, you have to defend your honor. You have to defend the person you defamed on these fields of honor, as they called them. And that leads to the duel where Burr ends up killing Hamilton because he refuses to apologize or refuses to withdraw whatever statement he supposedly made.
It is, again, so interesting. So I want to back up to the election because this is before the president and vice president ran as a ticket, right? It was, whoever is first gets to be president, whoever is the runner up is the vice president, which thank goodness that is not the way it is now, because I think that would be incredibly awkward.
Yes, it would.
But so doesn't Jefferson change this because he doesn't want to have Aaron Burr as his vice president?
Yes. So 1800 is such a disaster, electorally speaking, that Jefferson and his party, particularly his party activists, promote or sponsor the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, which changes the original procedure. As you mentioned, if you came in second, you become vice president. So, for instance, today we'd have a Donald Trump and Kamala Harris presidency and vice presidency. Not going to work all that well, needless to say. So the 12th Amendment recognizes the development of political parties. It basically institutionalizes the idea that a presidential candidate can pick his vice president, or he and his party, I should say, can pick his vice president, and that those folks are going to run as a ticket. But you're absolutely right. In 1800, what happened was that Burr was seen within Jeffersonian circles as the guy running for the second spot. Mm-hmm. But there was a screw up in the state of Georgia with their electoral votes, and that leads to a tie in the Electoral College. Now, Aaron Burr could have done perhaps the statesman-like thing and said, all right, members of the House, now that the election's thrown to you guys, I was supposed to be the vice presidential candidate. Please do not consider me for the top spot. He does not do that. And typical Aaron Burr, all ambition, no principle. So, yes, it's that disaster in 1800 that leads to the 12th Amendment that makes now the vice presidential choice separate from the presidential choice.
And is Aaron Burr a Democratic Republican, or is he a Federalist?
Well, that's you put your finger right on it, Liz. Alexander Hamilton would have said the guy is neither, or neither, however you pronounce that word. He has no principles, according to Hamilton. He just follows public opinion. He goes which way the wind blows, sticks his finger in the air. So one day he might appear to be Federalist, the other day more of a Democrat, Republican, or a Jeffersonian. Mm-hmm. So he, again, according to his rivals, and I happen to believe they were onto something, he's not a man of principle. He's a man of raw ambition, and that was all he was about.
So it sounds like just all of these slights between Hamilton and Burr happen, and it culminates in a duel in New Jersey, because like the plague says, everything is legal in New Jersey. Is Aaron Burr vice president at the time?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
Yes, he is.
And then is Alexander Hamilton, what is his role in the government in 1804?
No role in the government at that point. When Jefferson wins in 1800, Hamilton had already returned to Manhattan. He's a prominent lawyer in Manhattan. His last formal public service had been as George Washington's Secretary of the Treasury. So that's already quite a few years in the past. But you do have the sitting Vice President of the United States shooting the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States and killing him.
So, I mean, this all happens. Is Burr arrested? Like, how? Because, I mean, we know that Alexander Hamilton does not survive the duel. But what happens to Burr then? Because, again, he's the sitting vice president.
He is indicted. And so his term of office expires. Mm-hmm. So the election of 1804, Jefferson has replaced Burr, using this new 12th Amendment. He's picked Governor George Clinton of New York. Burr serves out the remainder of his vice presidency. But then, as I think most of us know, he's going to flee. Maybe flee is a little too strong, but he's going to head west. And he's going to get into some more trouble out west for allegedly conspiring to set up his own empire of Burrville or whatever he's going to call it. And so he is running from an indictment of sorts, not of sorts. He's running from an indictment in New York State related to the duel with Hamilton. I think it is important, Liz, and the musical makes a lot of this. Hamilton did throw away his shot. Burr chose not to. He chose to shoot at Hamilton.
Mhm.
And according to those who studied dueling, that odd practice from our founding era, most folks on the dueling ground tended to fire past your opponent. The goal was not to kill them. Burr opted to kill Hamilton. And again, for me, that says a lot about his character. In a way, he is on the run when he heads west. He is ultimately brought back to the United States by the Jefferson administration, charged with treason and acquitted. And he's going to live for another 30 or so years, but his public service is over. The Jeffersonians don't like him for what he did to Jefferson in 1800. And needless to say, the Federalists aren't fond of him for killing Alexander Hamilton. So he lives his life, the remainder of life, in disgrace.
I liked what you said, all ambition, no principle. Aaron Burr, the musical, it feels like they really set it up that he was like, upset that he shot him and he didn't realize that that's what they were doing. But you're saying like, no, he absolutely made the choice to take that shot. And
Yes.
It is so interesting too that he is charged with treason. So, I mean, could we consider Aaron Burr a traitor? Even though you say he's found innocent, I mean, does history look at him as a traitor?
I think for the most part, Liz, history does look upon Burr with find that conspiracy that he was engaged in was probably legitimate, that he was up to no good, maybe trying to strike a deal with Spain or whatever. It's very murky. The key source was playing both sides, so that adds to some of the confusion and it contributes to Burr's acquittal. But I would say for most historians throughout most of our history, Burr is something of a disgraced figure. Perhaps less so for killing Hamilton, more so for these activities out west where he appeared to be betraying his own country. Again, I can't say that. No one can say that with 100% certainty. But it does seem to me, circumstantially speaking, that this was a man who was once again up to no good. And by the way, that's coming from a dyed-in-the-wool Hamiltonian, so perhaps it's no surprise.
Well, and I think with the popularity of the play and just that play too, just bringing history more to light and understanding, these characters in this play, there's actually a lot more to them. I'm sure there are people listening right now that didn't know that there's a whole nother side to Burr and this conspiracy and all of these other things. So Dr. Knott, I'm so glad I got to talk to you on this one specifically because I know that you are a dyed-in-the-wool Hamiltonian, but it's just such an interesting thing. Has any other sitting president or vice president been in a duel, or was it just him? Now I'm like, that's going to be my next deep dive.
I'm reluctant, that we had so many vice presidents in the 1800s. It's possible. Well, certainly Andrew Jackson was involved in multiple duels. I grant you he wasn't a vice president, but
yes,
Jackson was involved in approximately 11 duels and actually did kill a man in a duel and spent the bulk of his life walking around with some shot in his chest from one of those duels. In fact, there was a joke at the time that you could hear him coming down the hallway because he sounded like a bag of marbles. He had so much lead in him. That's an overstatement, clearly.
Yes.
But Jackson, it was very typical, particularly, obviously not in the Burr-Hamilton case, but particularly south of the Mason-Dixon line. If you were insulted as a public figure, you were expected as a man to challenge that person who insulted you. And you were supposed to get your dignity, your credibility back by challenging that person. If they wouldn't meet you on the field of honor, then the disgrace was on them. So it was quite common. I would say this, Liz, I used to tell a joke. I don't know how well this will go over. The other vice president that we do know that actually shot somebody was Dick Cheney, who had a hunting accident in 2006 or 7 or 8 or somewhere in there, totally by accident.
Yes,
But,
not a duel, but
I always got a laugh from my students. Maybe it was a cheap shot of sorts, but
well, it is, and I did double check. Aaron Burr is the only one, but you are correct. Andrew Jackson, multiple, and he actually ended up killing somebody too. So,
yes.
Dr. Knott, I feel like I could talk about this with you forever, but for the sake of time, again, thank you so much for your expertise. Listeners, if you have not listened to Dr. Knott's other episodes, we did one on George Bush and the 9/11 address, and then we also did one on Executive Order 9066 in the Korematsu case. So definitely go back and look at those. And I'm going to say this, not because I have to, but because this is a very genuine, one of my favorite scholars to work with, also one of my favorite authors. So Dr. Knott, just again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Civics in a Year. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who cares about a constitutional republic as much as you do. For more episodes, resources, and updates, follow us on social media or visit us at civics.asu.edu. Make sure to check out the show notes for any relevant links. Special thanks to the United States Marine Band for their performance of the Stars and Stripes Forever. Let's keep building a stronger constitutional republic, one episode at a time.